ceaseless attacks by Iran on them, particularly on civilians and civilian infrastructure.
So, Chancellor, will you ask a meeting to President Macron about the American decision?
Well, we will have the opportunity to speak with each other over the weekend, and we will check what we can do. And I'm totally agreeing with what Mark Carney said about the sanctions, and this is our view, and this is shared by most of the G7 members, and we will figure out what we can do to keep them ongoing and to increase them instead of releasing them.
The next questions come from Mr. Rinke, Reuters.
I have a question to Prime Minister Carney. You just said that we are stronger together if we work together. So my question would be about submarines. Why does Canada not buy the offer Germany and Norway have made? Why are you still thinking about why are you still thinking about a South Korean offer? And a question to the Chancellor and Mr. Stoere. What could you actually offer on addition of the offer which was made by the company to Canada to make it more appealing to accept it?
Well, let me answer this in a way that doesn't put pressure on my two colleagues, which is that all of our governments are making enormous additional investments in defense and security, rightly so. But all of us are doing so in a way that is responsible with taxpayer dollars, that look to ensure that those investments have the maximum effect in terms of providing defense and security to our citizens, and also build partnerships that have broader industrial and economic benefits for all of us together. What does that mean from a process perspective is you run a very clear, consistent, transparent, open, fair process. And the reason I'm not going to answer your question is we're towards the final stages of that. We're at the final stages of that, and we're blessed by having options, very much including the German-Norwegian option. Thank you.
Well, let me say that the offer from Norway and Germany was handed to Canada a few days ago, and I have every confidence that the Canadians will make a thorough evaluation of that offer. So I'll let the technical details lie. Just want to say that from our experience, investing together in these kind of very comprehensive capacities is more about than the capacities. It is also building industrial partnership and strategic and security policy partnership. So when Norway and Germany are integrating on submarines and on tanks, as we have seen here, it means also a very strong political integration between mature and trusted allies. So we get much closer in the way we share outlook on security environment, on security threats, and it's also kind of a cultural dimension of bringing us together, which provides Norway net security by those kind of common projects. So I think that's the whole idea. These are major investments, as Prime Minister Carney says. We are making decisions on spending a lot of money on this, which means that we can spend less money on other important issues in our societies. And in addition to investing in these capacities, you know, when we do it together, we get an extra political dimension, which is very important for Norwegian security.
Well, I fully agree with what my colleagues said. This is covering the entire picture of, the one hand, spending money for the right equipment, on the other hand, to standardize, to bring more standards into NATO, and to scale up the numbers. So this is, in my view, extremely important. And we're talking about, and as Mark Carney said, we are in the final stage of our talks, and I'm very much hoping that we can convince the Canadian partners to do that, what we want to see them to do.
The next question comes from TV2, Simen Grimstad Øksnes.
Hello. Norwegian authorities repeatedly emphasize that the United States is Norway's most important ally. Do the German Chancellor and the Canadian Prime Minister still believe that the US can be trusted when it comes to security in the north?
Yes.
Yes. Is that? Do you want me to elaborate on that? We have our defense of the North is integrated. I'll give an example through NORAD, which is since for my entire lifetime has been the integrated listening post air defense system in the Canadian North and high Arctic. Fundamentally integrated with the United States. So we have that level of trust for that system. But I will say at the same time, and this was a huge element of what we announced yesterday, is that we are, as Canada, are taking control and responsibility for defense of our Arctic, more control and responsibility for defense of our Arctic. We will do that by very large investments, some of which we announced yesterday, and we will do that in partnership with our closest allies, very much including Norway and Germany, and if I may broaden Norway to include the Nordic countries and the Baltic countries to some degree, because there's an integration of the Nordic-Baltic Gate through NATO. So we're broadening out those partnerships. That makes us stronger, as does taking more of the responsibility ourselves. Thank you.
Can I add one dimension to this? And I think one reason why we can say that we trust is that being present in cooperation with the United States in the North is also homeland security for the United States.
Right.
This is about protecting Norway, but by protecting Norway, keeping low tensions, avoiding conflict here, it is net positive for the security of the United States. We believe that is self-interest. So yes.
But when US eases the sanctions on Russia, doesn't that create a different picture?
We have made it clear that we disagree with that decision, and you know, disagreements appear among countries. Let's be honest about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next question is from Valérie Ganache, Radio Canada.
Sorry, we did a little switch. It's Catherine Tunney from CBC. My question is for all three of you. As you know, Trump has ordered a 301 investigation into major economies, including your own, alleging unfair labor practices. My question is, do you think that is valid? And Prime Minister Carney, if you'll allow me to double barrel a question in the rain, but many Canadians are probably looking at that latest job report with some worry, some 84,000 jobs lost, the worst in years. What does that say about your handle of things?
Okay, well, maybe I'll start, so I'll get rid of the both elements of it. Look, if you look at the performance of the labor market over the course of the last 6 months, we've created over 80,000 jobs net over the last 6 months. The United States has created 6,000 jobs. Okay, the United States, 11 times the size of our economy. Wages are growing at 4.2%, fastest wage growth in years. Unemployment 6.7% is lower than the peak the level when I came into office a year ago. There's no question, though, because it goes to the first part of your question, now I'll move to that, which is that given the scale of the trade actions, the uncertainty that is associated as well as with the trade actions by the United States, that is causing big adjustments in the Canadian economy. And that's why we're making major investments across a whole range of areas. I won't go through them all. I think you're probably familiar with them. In terms of the U.S. 301 actions announced today against 60 countries, I guess the first thing I'd say is I welcome the fact that the United States cares about labor practices in other countries. The allegation is not labor practices in our countries. It's imports from countries who would be using forced labor or slave labor. Canada has a comprehensive legal framework around that. as is the case to my right. And we take it very seriously, and we stand by our adherence to Canadian law. Yes, there are provisions in USMCA related to labor standards, but there are stronger provisions in Canadian law against forced labor, and we expect those to be followed. And when they're not, they are prosecuted. Thank you.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The last question today is Mrs. Sievert from Table Media.
Thank you. Eine Frage an den Bundeskanzler. Sie haben den
I have a question to the Federal Chancellor. You mentioned Iran. Would you support the Europeans or the Germans to establish a direct contact with the Iranians so that the Strait of Hormuz can be reopened?
You have emphasized that you are showing here that the North is able to defend itself. When looking at this, would you say that the conflict looking at Greenland is completely settled with the US as of now?
Well, wir unternehmen alle Anstrengungen.
Well, we make every effort to bring the war in Iran to an end. We do everything we can diplomatically. We use all diplomatic channels, and we hope that we will find ways to end this war as soon as possible, because it doesn't serve anybody and it harms many economically. It also harms us. And the second part of the question, we are working closely together. We try to find ways for us to cooperate even more closely. We show it with our presence here today, and this is the right way forward that we have embarked on together and will continue to do so in the coming years. Yeah.
Of the Kingdom of Denmark, and it's up to the people in Greenland and in Denmark to trace the future for the people in Greenland. Any attempt to say that a country can take land from another country is unacceptable. It's not acceptable to international law, and especially something which should be unheard of among allies.
And I will just fully associate myself with that. I've said it in the past, and I just add this because it goes to what's happening here, is that we are fully prepared individually and collectively to defend the Arctic and the High North. What this operation is about, this training exercise, is to further build those capabilities against Russia, against any external threat. And of course, that very much includes Denmark as one of the 14 countries that's participating. It's also the case with Arctic Sentry within NATO and other frameworks. So we will deal with the security threats as partners, not as individuals. Thank you.
Okay.
And on that note, we need to wrap up this press conference. Thank you so much.
Very good. Very good.